Alrighty, we're using a hat today because the hair is just... no. So I finally saw Tenet, directed by Christopher Nolan, one of my most anticipated movies of the year. It has been pushed back, delayed because of what's going on. I'm in a state where theaters aren't open, so I couldn't watch it when it finally came out. But I finally saw it on Prime Video, and it was pretty good. It's not one of Nolan's best films, but it is a really good action movie, and technically, the filmmaking in this movie is amazing. This is a must-watch for all Nolan fans and for all action movie fans, but it's not without its faults. The action pieces are epic and breathtaking, but in a weird way tangible, mainly because lots of it is shot in camera. When something is exploding and not flipping backwards in time, more likely than not, that is actually being shot in camera. Performances all around the board are really good. John David Washington made me care about a character who is otherwise pretty one-dimensional. Robert Pattinson did a really good job. He's very charismatic, not as good as Washington in my opinion, but up there. Just every time I see him on screen, I just get more and more excited for the Batman. Elizabeth Debicki as Kat is definitely the best character in the movie and the most fleshed out and the most emotionally compelling. That being said, I could easily segue into the negatives, but I wanted to mention, and this doesn't really need to be mentioned, but the concept for this movie is really ambitious and really awesome to see on screen. Even though it can be very convoluted at times, it's very commendable that a filmmaker like Nolan continues to make these insane movies where he just tries out different concepts, so that alone is very commendable. Where this movie falls flat is the actual story execution of the concepts and the character work. The character work in this movie is non-existent. John David Washington's character is literally called the protagonist. Robert Pattinson's character is just the friend of the protagonist. And Emily Debicki's character is the woman that the protagonist is interested in. While, like I said, Kat is the most interesting character, doesn't mean she's a great character. Overall, her character is pretty one-note because she doesn't really bounce off any of the other characters because they're hardly characters. So just personally, I'm not a massive fan of action movies just because the plot for all of them are pretty much the same and the good guys always win. Mission Impossible Fallout is a perfect combination of character and action pieces. The action pieces are insane, but the character moments work really well as well. The actual plot is surprisingly confusing, and not just the inversion stuff. There is something that happens with a painting. It's kind of the genesis of the story. The most confusing thing I have ever seen. This is not to say that the inversion stuff is easy to follow, because oh my god, it's not. In the third act, there are two separate teams, buildings are collapsing and reassembling, and I have no idea why that's going on. When it comes to Nolan films, I am fully aware that a part of the fun is kind of researching the movie, going down the rabbit hole of YouTube videos, but I have to say, this movie, and this is something that really disappointed me, I have no interest to find out what I just watched. The only thing that I would really get out of rewatching this movie or going down a rabbit hole of YouTube videos is just understanding the plot. The basic gist of the plot is they have to save the world. So I don't really care about the confusing stuff that much because it doesn't really add that much emotional weight and the characters are really bland. The reason Nolan movies like Interstellar, Inception, and of course the Batman movies work for me so much is because at the core of these confusing movies, including the Batman movies, at the core of these confusing movies is a character drama, something I can root for, something I can understand. While there's some stuff in Interstellar that's confusing I have to research about, and there's lots of stuff in Inception that you have to research about, there's always a main character that you want to root for, you want to succeed, not with the protagonist. But by far the biggest thing that this movie has to offer is the spectacle. Even though I watched this movie at home, it was an experience. At a certain point while watching this movie, I just had to accept that I am just not going to understand what's happening at the moment. I do appreciate that there are many lines in the movie that kind of just tell you, hey, just enjoy what you're watching and figure it out later.
Don't try to understand it. Feel it.
You can follow that advice if you want, but I'm going to tell you what happened when I followed that advice. I got bored. Once again, for like the third time, the movie is a spectacle to look at, but if you're just kind of feeling the movie and letting things occur, it just kind of becomes an action movie, and it's very easy to get bored because the characters and the emotion is not there. Respect this movie. Overall, I did enjoy this movie. I had a fun time watching it, but I can't say I connected to this movie really in any way besides appreciating its existence. I will give Tenet a B+. I was thinking about giving this an A-, but there's just too many problems for me to give it that high of a score. It feels weird calling this like a B+ movie. It is so much more than that, especially from a filmmaking standpoint, but just the character and the emotion, or the lack of the characters and the emotion, really just kind of killed this movie for me, and the fact that it is so convoluted. I recommend it to those who haven't seen it. If you're really dying to watch it, yeah, it's worth $20. You can watch it, make it a night, have some popcorn. It's fun. It's a fun watch. But it's not one of Nolan's best film by a mile. And that pretty much wraps up my review of Tenet. If you enjoyed this video, then you definitely will enjoy this channel, so please consider subscribing. Shout out to Lucas Hyatt, he has subscribed to the David and Aiden Show podcast channel. If you want to shout out, let me know in the comment section down below that you have subscribed to my podcast channel that I do with my buddy Aiden McGuire. If you let me know, I will give you a shout out in an upcoming video, that simple. Lucas's channel link will be in the description down below. Once again, thank you so much for watching, I will see you in the next video, may the force be with you.